Hello, welcome to Chicana Kitchen. Today we're going to make salsa roja. This is the salsa you're probably familiar with from your favorite taco truck. It's spicy, not blindingly hot, but has a good bite, and it's super simple to make, so let's go. All right, so this is super simple. We will use one guajillo pepper, about 10 chile arbol. These are these little ones here. 2 cloves of garlic. We leave them whole, and depending on the size, 4 or 5 tomatillos. So we want to peel the husks off of them and rinse them, and I've done that already. So these weren't real big, so I used about 5 of them. And other than that, all we're going to need is a little bit of water and a few shakes of salt. The peppers I used, you can use whatever you can get a hold of. This is an average grocery store brand. Works fine for me. So we're going to put a dry pan on about medium, and we're going to take our peppers. Just peel the stems off. Don't worry about the membranes or the seeds. We're just going to toast those in the pan. The guajillo will take a little bit longer. You can press it down with your fingers or tongs if you want. It doesn't have to get too evenly toasted. We're just going to toast these really for maybe 30 seconds aside for the little ones, and maybe just a tiny bit longer for the guajillo, just to bring out some of the flavors. I'm just pulling the stems off of the arbols, but otherwise, we leave them intact. If some seeds spill out, that's fine. So when these are done toasting, we'll just put the dry peppers in the jar of a blender. You can use a food processor instead. The peppers a glass jar is nice because the smell of the peppers does tend to stick in plastic a little bit more. So these guys are done. We'll turn this one over. So we're going to let those peppers sit in the blender, pull off just a touch, and we will grind them up before we put the rest of our ingredients in. But here we're going to put the tomatillos in the pan. They'll take a few more minutes. Again, dry pan. By the way, yes, I'm using tongs in what looks like a non-stick pan. This is an old pan that is basically kind of a cast iron situation, and the tongs are fine. This pan is reserved. I only use it for salsas, so it has a bit of a patina, but it can stand up to the tongs, no problem. So our peppers are cooled a bit, and we're going to blend them. It doesn't have to be to a powder, but we want it broken up pretty fine. So we'll probably have to stop and start the blender a bit to get that big guajillo really broken up. All right, so we're gonna pop back over to the stove and see how our tomatillos are doing. They should be starting to get nice and blistered. All right, so the garlic will be done first. You want it good and toasty. All right, and you see some of these tomatillos, they're really dark enough here. They're not gonna get blistered on every surface, but as long as you get at least the tops and bottoms, and some of them will start to slump a little bit, maybe sizzle a little, you'll know they're about ready. So these guys are almost there. And when they are, we're going to pop them in the blender along with the pepper and the garlic. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and give this a few shakes of salt. You can always add salt, you can't take it out, but this isn't a particularly salty sauce. So we'll do that. Quick word about the heat. It really depends on your peppers. Sometimes they're fairly hot. This isn't wildly hot salsa, but it's got some bite to it. So, depends on the peppers you get, but you could tell usually when you grind them up. Mine were smelled reasonably hot. So if you find that this salsa is tasty but just a little too hot for your liking, you can always add more tomatillos or use fewer arbol chiles, and that'll that'll be a good way to adjust the heat. All right, we'll see if we can take a few of these tomatillos out of the pan, and our next stop will be blending again. All right, so we've got our ground pepper, salt, tomatillos, and garlic cloves in the blender. It's still pretty hot. Whenever you blend something hot, be careful to hold on to the lid because it's liable to pop. The only other thing we're going to add is a little bit of water. It's basically enough to make the blender go around. Those tomatillos are really juicy, but you need just a little bit more to keep the mixture loose enough. And of course, you can also adjust that to your liking. If you want a thinner salsa, you can add more water. But I'm going to add, to start, maybe, I'd say about a quarter of a cup of water, and we will see how that goes. You can, of course, blend further if you want a really fairly smooth sauce, but we usually leave this pretty rustic. And we're going to pour that right into a glass jar. Make sure we get all of that good salsa. All right, so we have our finished salsa here. We've got about a cup or so of salsa. You can see it's got that nice red color with the flecks of pepper skin in it. Even though most of the ingredients, most of the bulk of the salsa is tomatillo, it'll keep that nice red color. Speaking of keeping, it'll keep for a couple of weeks in the fridge. Not that ours ever sticks around that long. It's my son's favorite salsa and he goes through it like crazy. You will want to wait until your salsa cools all the way before you put the lid on the jar. But that's about it. Super simple. Salsa Roja. Thank you for joining us in the Chicana kitchen. See you next time.